Hello everyone, Giltar here with a model kit review. This time we'll be looking at the high-grade Build Fighters Build Strike Gundam Full Package Kit, which was released in October of 2013 with a manufacturer suggested retail price of 1,400 yen, or roughly $14 US at current exchange rates. The first point I'd like to mention is the way that the model has a pseudo inner frame structure for both the arms and the legs. This is a very interesting design element in my eyes, as the frame parts are quite reminiscent of the basic inner frames of early generation master grade model kits. Now, I've seen similar structure and frame elements in previous high grade kits to various degrees. Probably the best example of that is the high grade Universal Century Yagdoga, where the torso, arms, and legs have an underlying, albeit rudimentary, frame structure. I'd love to see more high grade kits in the future implement such design elements with more regularity. Now, we do see full inner frames in real grade kits, but that's a product line that has a less frequent release schedule than the high grade line, and they also tend to focus more on lead antagonist and protagonist model kits. I'd like to see more inner frame structures in mass production kits and the less popular ones that can be seen in the high grade lines as opposed to the real grade line. Moving on to the Build Strike Gundam itself, as you can see, the articulation ability is on par with modern high grade model kits. A ball-jointed neck, swivel and ball joints at the shoulders, ball joints at the mid-torso and the waist, swivels and hinges at the hips and upper thighs, double-jointed knees, swivels above the ankles, and ball joints at both the ankle armors and the ankles themselves allow this model kit to strike a wide variety of dynamic poses, including more subtle and naturalistic poses such as this kneeling position. The accessories included are a beam pistol, a beam rifle, enhanced beam rifle, a Chobham shield, and 2 beam sabers. And here we have the Build Booster, which is a really great little accessory for the Build Strike Gundam. This combined with the Build Strike makes it into the quote-unquote full package. Now, some great points about this little accessory is that it has multiple functions. It can function as a backpack for the Build Strike Gundam, basically giving it a lot more display potential. It can also function on its own as a separate fighter jet type of unit. The really great part about this type of accessory is that it has multiple points of articulation. You have swivels and hinges for the wings. The wings themselves can fold out with basic swivel points, but it really enhances the look by giving it some various dynamic poses that are possible with this. The beam cannons on the bottom are attached by 2 points through a central connection arm unit. To the body of the Build Booster there is a ball joint connection, and to the guns themselves there's a swivel point connection. And while it doesn't seem like much, it really does add a lot of posing potential for the Build Strike Gundam. Now, one thing to note, as you can see here, is completely composed of blue plastic. Now, unfortunately, that is going to be an issue for people who don't really get into the painting aspect of customizing their Gunpla. It is going to be a problem simply because there are a lot of missing color details, whites, reds, grays. This is something that either you're going to have to sort of, I guess, suck up and just either apply the stickers or put some effort into painting it. Personally, I don't really mind it. I think it's understandable. For the price of the model kit, which is relatively low, to have more part separation in terms of colors for this aspect of the model kit would have definitely increased the price. And this accessory or component itself is actually fairly complex for what it is. So I think a little goes a long way in terms of either you're going to pay more money for color separation in parts, or you get something like this in which you either have stickers to apply or some paint on your own time and effort. And here we have the Build Strike Gundam full package. I guess I'll start off with my overall thoughts with my negative and positive points of the model kit. Starting with the single negative point, and I will preface this by saying it's something that I would say is an objective point of criticism, not a personal or more subjective point of criticism, which is the lack of color separation of the parts in the Build Booster. That's something that a lot of people seem to really not be happy about, and I can understand that. If you're a person who doesn't like using stickers on your model kits, but at the same time you're not really into coloring or painting up your model kits either, this is definitely a problem for you. However, moving to a more personal note on this, As I explained earlier, in order to keep this model kit at a 1400 yen price point, it would not have been possible if you had more, or any rather, color separation of the parts for the build booster. In fact, you actually have a lot of color separation of parts in the actual Build Strike Gundam itself. So to have it lacking in the build booster is a bit of a disappointment, but I think it's totally understandable, it's explainable, and there is a reason behind it. Now moving on to the positive points, starting off with color separation of parts for the Build Strike itself, it's a really great thing. For people out there who want to or like to paint and basically apply color to their model kits instead of using stickers, the use of the part separation really helps. I think it will definitely help novices who are coming to the model kit hobby fairly recently. It'll help them use Gundam markers or other types of paints to make this model kit more accurate to the animation model on the TV show. Something else to mention is just simply what the build booster adds to the Build Strike design. The Build Strike design in itself I actually like a lot, but the build booster really adds an extra element of visual presence, visual impact, as well as simply physical presence on your display shelf or area. As you can see here, I've got the wings and the beam cannons of the build booster set up in two different ways. One is basically having the wing and beam cannon deployed, and the other way has the wing and beam cannon set aside. Now something I haven't flipped out here is actually the beam cannons do have a little flip up handle which the Build Strike can hold on to for posing. I don't really use them just because they're not that easy to hold on to. The handles are actually quite small for the hands of the Build Strike, so I leave them disengaged, just to let you guys know I am aware of those parts. But getting back to the point about the build booster and what it adds to the model kit, it just really adds a lot of great potential for display. Really dynamic poses could be struck, and because of all the different joints of the build booster parts, you can really mix up the look of the build booster on the Build Strike for a great variety of looks. Overall, I think this is a really fun and great model kit, especially considering the relatively low price you're paying. 1400 yen is not a lot. And with this model kit, you get a base model, you get the build booster, you get 3 beam guns, you get 2 beam sabers, you get a shield, decent, actually a fairly good amount of color part separation of the Build Strike. And again, the only drawback is there's no color separation of the parts for the build booster. Overall, I definitely recommend this model kit to anybody who can look at it and just say, this looks good, I would like to have it on my display. I would say go for it. Now, the good news for people who aren't into the 1:144 scale and high-grade model kits in general, there will be a master grade version of the Build Strike coming out in 2014 in the first quarter, I believe. So for anybody else out there who really likes the look of the Build Strike but doesn't want a high-grade kit version, just wait a few more months and you'll get a 1:100 scale and more complex engineered master grade kit of this. So as always, I'm glad you guys watched. I hope you enjoyed it and got something out of it. Have yourselves a great day, and I'll see you at the next video.